unfortunate has a family member whose voice is not being heard. We have thousands who need aid and support. But what we need more than that is your voices, your courage. You to come out every single day, every single minute, every single second to not forget Palestine, because Palestine is every single one of us. So are we going to be silenced? Are we going to cower in fear? Are we going to allow the coward Albanese and Dutton tell us that we are not a peaceful march? We will come out every single day. Australia, Melbourne leads the world in the history books. We have let it come out, thousands of us, for 9 months. And we are growing in numbers. We have not been diminished. So every single one of us makes a promise to you, Albanese and Dutton. You will not have us cowed and afraid. You will see us here every single week, you coward! Now I'd like to welcome our next speaker. And I'd like to thank every single one of you first who comes out every week, who comes out in your workplaces, who comes out in your schools. Because it's because of you we're starting to see hope. We may be seeing the most bleakest times in Gaza, but we also have hope, and it's because of you. Now our next speaker is Lucas Moore. He's a long-time Palestine activist. And interestingly enough, we started Students for Palestine together in 2009 at La Trobe University. That was the first Students for Palestine. Palestinian resistance on our campuses has a long history. And we're very proud of our students and what they've managed to accomplish on their campuses right now, but they need more support. Lucas is also running for his Banyule Council for a position in support of Palestine. And we need to make sure that we get as many pro-Palestinian voices out there in our electorates and in our political systems. We need our voices to be heard. So Lucas is going to talk to us about his position on Palestine. But every single one of us needs to talk about what are we going to do with our voting ballot. We're going to be voting for Palestine every single day. And we will vote out every single minister who does not stand with Palestine and stands on the side of the genociders. Please give Lucas a warm welcome.
Thank you, Mai. It's Palestinians like you that have continued to inspire all of us for generations. You know, not just for what you've suffered and endured, but for your continued tireless capacity to resist. So give it up for Mai. She's been working so hard. You know, I wanted to start with something that's been rattling around in my head the last few weeks. It's something that Aaron Bushnell said just before he took his life, set himself on fire for our cause. What is happening? That this is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. When I see refugee camps in Rafah burning and the headless bodies of babies and tanks and soldiers mowing down civilians, this is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. When I see hospitals and schools bombed and children crying and starving and dying of preventable diseases and infections, this is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. And when I read about Israel's AI drone system that circles Gaza and mows down hell on anybody they view as a legitimate target, this is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. This is what America, Israel, and our Australian government are declaring before the whole world, that the 21st century will be the same as the 20th century. A century of inequality, of starvation, of war, of lies, and of genocide. And frankly, that's a world I don't want to live in. I don't want to live in a world that says what is happening right now in Gaza is normal or acceptable or justifiable. And when I see Penny Wong and our government's response, I see red. She dares to state that it's Hamas who must lay down arms when it's them who've been agreeing to peace deals. It's Israel that is keeping this war going. It's Israel who has always been the aggressor. And our government prefers to imply that it's Hamas using human shields that is causing these casualties. This is directly parroting Israeli lies. As if there is any way to justify these 37,000 deaths that we've seen. And as if there is any way to justify our government's continued inaction. They continue to do nothing but give weak words of concern. They won't recognise Palestine as a state. They won't condemn Israel as an apartheid regime. They won't even call it genocide. Everybody can see it. They used to have guts. They called South Africa out as apartheid and they put in sanctions. Why not with Israel? Why do they do nothing? Why do they not take action? Is it because they don't understand? Is it because they don't hear us? No, they hear us. Give me a free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Yeah, I reckon they hear us. But I don't think they care. They've chosen not to care. Because they're dedicated to capitalism, because they're wedded to the US alliance, because they support their imperialist system, which is built on competition and necessitates war and bloodshed. And if you do that, if those are your priorities, then everything else is just unfortunate collateral damage. We need to end that alliance with America. We need to rip up AUKUS. We need to forge our own foreign policy. Take the lead on the global stage like we do with South Africa. If you've been paying attention, you'll know that the Palestinians aren't the only ones that are being ripped off by this government. They're also locking up First Nations at record rates. They're locking us with huge debts just to get an education or own a home. They're spreading racist hysteria about immigrants and planning to introduce the travel bans that Donald Trump would be proud of. And they're trashing the environment and making the climate crisis worse. Sometimes when you look at the state of things, you know, it feels like we're on that shitty timeline. You know, the one where we all end up dead in an apocalyptic hellscape. You know, where what is happening in Gaza is extended to conflicts across the world, you know, in machines and fire and blood. And when you look at things our government is doing, and when you hear discussions of national service, you know, of nuclear power, of nuclear submarines, and of escalating tensions with China, that feeling gets stronger and stronger. That feeling is enabled by our Labour government and encouraged. They're sleepwalking our country into disaster while muddling how deeply concerned they are about the whole thing. So small and black are their hearts. So warped are their priorities, so lacking they are in courage and vision to choose a better path and to take action for peace. They have become captured to vested business interests and the military-industrial complex. If we are to forge a better future, it won't be through them. They've had their chance, it's clear which side they're on. Just this week they've been attacking our movement in the press, as if we're the ones who should be condemned and not Israel. Well, it's up to us, it's up to every single one of us. And we're doing a fantastic job. Seriously, I'm so proud of all of you. You know, I was on campus 15 years ago or so. Israel was bombing Gaza back then. You know, I remember rallies we'd have for Palestine then. You know, right here, we'd be lucky to get 200 people. Now we've got a huge movement, a movement thousands of strong, you know, of people who have now 8 months experience doing what it takes to make change. You know, organising rallies, lighting up speakers, printing leaflets, putting up posters, you know, taking direct action, making encampments. Like back then, this will lay the basis for bigger things in the future. Because we're going to need to keep taking action, we're going to need bigger things if we're going to avoid that dark future that I spoke about. We're also going to need to take this movement into the political sphere. It's time we make it explicit. The Labour and Liberal Party are Zionists. They're Zionist parties. And it's clear. They picked a side. So we said, fuck Albo. Fuck Penny Wong. Fuck the Labour Party. Fuck the Liberal Party. The two-party system must end. The Labour Party, who have made themselves complicit in genocide, must be politically destroyed. And to do that, we must fight them out. And your first chance to do that, the thing that I'm supposed to be talking about, is council elections happening later this year in October. Our movement has shown that councils can take a stand if they're pushed to it. Shout out to the crew in Nillumbik, who had a rally a couple of weeks ago. They were met with the old, oh, this isn't a council issue excuse. We got the same thing in Banyule, but after a couple of passionate rallies, they were singing a different tune. And they passed a statement calling for a ceasefire. 10 other councils across Victoria have done the same thing. They made pamphlets. It's because of pressure like that, along with our protests and continued action, that I think that this Labour Party calls for a ceasefire at all. If it wasn't for us, they'd be still saying, oh, sorry, Israel has a right to defend itself. Of course we know calling for a ceasefire is simple. It's just a start, it's just a first step. We need those words put into action. Councils can do more. They could say what our federal government refuses to say. They could call it genocide. They could call Israel out as an apartheid regime. And they could do what our federal government won't. They can help us raise funds for Gazan refugees who have arrived here, who sadly and shamefully aren't getting the support they need from the federal government. They can join the BDS movement and end contracts with businesses tied to Israel. And they can shine a spotlight on manufacturers in our neighbourhoods that are directly tied to the Israeli occupation forces. I was shocked to learn there's one out in my neighbourhood in Banyule. They're called Laments Technologies, and they make components essential for Israel's F-3 fighter jets. There's not a single jet that Israel uses that doesn't have a component manufactured right in my neighbourhood in Greensboro. We're planning to take steps against that. We want to put pressure on them to make medical supplies, not machines of war. Get in touch with me or the Banyule Palestine Action Group to get involved in that. But of course, to do all of that, to get action for Gaza, to get councils to join BDS, to get the Palestinian flag flying over all of our town halls, we're going to need to get some better councillors, I reckon. Not these hacks we have in many councils at the moment. I'm proud to say I'll be running for Banyule Council in my neighbourhood of West Heidelberg as an open socialist and a proud pro-Palestinian. Victorian Socialists, which I'm a member of, will be running pro-Palestinian candidates across the state. And it's worth pointing out that the first councils that passed the first motions and the strongest motions have signed on to BDS. They are all councils that have socialist representatives. George Teixeira and Maribor, Sue Bolton and Mary Beck, Gaetano Greco and Darabin. We need more socialist councillors so we can wrest back control of our neighbourhoods from the technocrats in the Labour and Liberal parties who continue to take our communities for granted, who embezzle council funds, who deliver very little, and who have failed to stand firmly against genocide. We want every council in Australia to condemn what Israel is doing and call it out for what it is, as genocide. It's councils where all of these heartless parasites get a start. In the major parties, it's there we can deliver a blow to the Labour Party machine. One they may notice, because they may not care about kids in Gaza, but they sure do care about staying in office. And they better take notice, or after the next federal election, I reckon there'll be a lot less of them.